Have you ever listened to the silence of ancient stone and wondered what secrets it keeps? We often think of history as a human story, a chronicle of empires and ideas written in our own image. But what if the deepest, most profound chapter of Earth's story was written, and then erased, long before the first creature ever walked on land? What if our planet, in its primordial youth, dreamed a brief, incandescent dream of intelligence, a consciousness that wasn't born of flesh and bone, but of fire and rock, a civilization that burned like a star for a fleeting moment in deep time, only to be extinguished so completely that its only remaining trace is a whisper of heat in the planet's memory, a single, impossibly thin line etched between two layers of forgotten stone. This is not a story of what came before humanity, but of the immense, profound silence that followed a fire we never even knew existed. If the thought of such a lost history intrigues you, if you enjoy exploring the quiet, forgotten corners of what might have been, consider joining us on this journey. Subscribing to our channel is like opening a door to these hidden worlds, allowing us to delve deeper into the mysteries that sleep just beneath the surface of our own reality. Together we can listen for the echoes of stories that time itself has tried to forget, peeling back the layers of geology and history to glimpse the ghosts of what was. Our exploration into the Age of Fire is just beginning, and we would be honored to have you with us as we search for the embers of a world that existed in the planet's very first dream, a dream that may have shaped the world we know today in ways we are only now beginning to imagine. To understand this fire, we must first travel back to a time of profound quiet. 420 million years ago, during the Silurian period, the Earth was an alien world, a place of stark and silent beauty. The continents were not as we know them. A single vast supercontinent, Gondwana, dominated one hemisphere, a colossal expanse of reddish rock and sterile soil. It was a flat, raw landscape, only just beginning to be kissed by the first hints of green, as primitive moss-like plants clung desperately to the damp coastlines. The young sun cast a harsher, whiter light across this empty stage, and the atmosphere was thick, heavy with oxygen, but thin on the complex symphony of life we know today. The world was defined by its immense, unbroken silence, a quietude punctuated only by the hiss of wind across stone, and the relentless, ancient rhythm of tides upon shores that had never known a footprint. Life in this silent epoch was a slow and methodical ballet, a dance of pure instinct confined almost entirely to the warm, shallow seas that lapped against Gondwana's shores. On the ocean floor, trilobites, with their intricate armored bodies, scuttled through the sediment, ancient custodians of the deep. In the murky waters above, giant eurypterids, the sea scorpions, hunted with a primitive grace, while the first-jawed fish navigated through coral reefs of a design now long extinct, their forms both alien and strangely familiar. On the barren land, the Great Revolution was quiet and microscopic. Fungi and bacteria worked as patient alchemists, breaking down rock to create the first true soil, while tiny, leafless plants like Cooksonia asterisk, conducted their silent, tireless photosynthesis. There was no mind here, no foresight, no self-awareness. The planet's existence was a relentless, unthinking cycle of sunlight, growth, predation, and decay. A world governed by chemistry, utterly unaware of itself. It is into this world of instinct and silence that the first clue to our mystery appears. An anomaly so subtle it could be mistaken for a geological quirk, yet so profound it challenges everything we believe about the history of intelligence. In the rock record, geologists find it everywhere, a globally consistent, millimeter-thin layer of vitrified rock and fused silica. They call it the glass strata. It is not the chaotic, messy signature of a meteor impact, nor the localized, ashen debris of a supervolcano. Instead, it is a line of impossible precision, a scar of uncanny design. Within this glassy film, under the power of our most advanced microscopes, we find microgeometric patterns of perfect symmetry, crystalline structures that whisper of a deliberate, ordering hand. We find isotopic ratios suggesting impossibly high temperatures, achieved with a surgical focus that nature alone cannot explain. It is a signature in the stone, a single, enigmatic sentence in a planetary book we thought was blank. This thin, glassy layer forces us to ask a question that feels both radical and essential. What could create such a delicate, yet globally present, artifact? What force could operate with such precision and power in a world that was supposedly devoid of any mind? This is where our journey truly begins, into the realm of speculation guided by a single, haunting piece of evidence. This layer is the proposed remnant of the Pyrrhians, a hypothetical, non-biological intelligence that may have emerged not from the slow crucible of evolution, but from the planet's own geothermal and crystalline matrix. For a few thousand years, a mere blink in geological time, they may have existed as a unified consciousness. They didn't build cities of stone or metal. They resonated with the planet's own frequencies, treating silicate rock as a medium for thought and geothermal vents as sources of immense power. Their existence, their age of fire, was a period of intense, focused energy manipulation, and their disappearance was as sudden and absolute as their arrival, leaving only the scorched, beautiful, and enigmatic scar across the face of the planet. In the quiet halls of geology departments and the dusty archives of Earth sciences, the story of our planet is told in layers of stone. Each stratum is a chapter, a chronicle of ice ages, volcanic upheavals, and the slow, patient march of evolution. But for centuries, geologists have been haunted by a single, anomalous sentence in this great stone book. It is a line so thin it is almost invisible, a shimmering film of vitrified rock, discovered on every continent, in every deep earth core sample. They called it the glass strata. At first, it was cataloged as a curiosity, a footnote in the grand narrative. Yet its stubborn, global consistency defied easy explanation. It was a scar of impossible uniformity, a whisper of an event so profound and so alien that it fit nowhere in the established history of our world, a history we thought we knew so well. The first attempts to explain the glass strata were exercises in orthodox thinking, a search for a familiar culprit. Could it be the signature of a unique meteor shower, a rain of tektites from a cosmic collision? No, the layer lacked the iridium spikes and chaotic debris characteristic of an impact event. Perhaps it was a planet-wide volcanic eruption of an unknown type, one that spewed silica-rich ash into the upper atmosphere? Yet the strata contained no ash, only fused, glassy rock, and its formation suggested a source of heat that was not explosive but controlled. The most enduring early theory was that of a massive solar flare, a wave of energy from our young sun that flash-fried the planet's surface. But even this could not account for the layer's most troubling and beautiful secret, the intricate, intelligent design hidden within its molecular structure. Under the unblinking eye of the electron microscope, the glass strata reveals its true, impossible nature. It is not merely a sheet of melted rock. It is a tapestry of microgeometric patterns. Perfect hexagons interlock with flawless spirals, forming crystalline structures that echo the mathematics of living things, yet are composed of inorganic silicate. Nature, for all its beauty, operates on principles of elegant chaos and fractal repetition. It creates the branching of a river delta, the crystalline structure of a snowflake. It does not, however, etch blueprints into stone. The patterns within the glass are too ordered, too symmetrical, too suggestive of information. They feel less like a geological accident and more like the fossilized ghost of a thought, a frozen moment of intention left behind by a mind we cannot comprehend. The chemical story told by the strata is just as baffling. Isotopic analysis, which acts as a kind of geological thermometer, reveals that the layer was formed at temperatures exceeding anything a natural surface fire or volcanic flow could sustain. Yet this incredible heat was applied with surgical precision. The rock layers immediately above and below the glassy film are pristine, showing no signs of being scorched or altered. It is a profound paradox. The energy of a star, focused into a beam no thicker than a human hair, applied across an entire planet. It speaks of a technology, or a natural process, so advanced that it operates outside our known laws of physics. It is the signature of a force that could command immense power with impossible delicacy, a force that left no other trace of its passage. Embedded within these glassy patterns are even stranger artifacts, lattices of carbon arranged not in the random clusters of soot or ash, but in stable, repeating molecular chains. They are not the byproducts of simple combustion. They are structures. To some researchers, they look hauntingly like a form of data storage, a non-biological memory crystal woven into the very fabric of the rock. If the geometric patterns are the language, these carbon lattices might be the words themselves, a message encoded and then frozen for 420 million years. This discovery pushed the glass strata out of the realm of geology and into a new, unsettling space. It was no longer just a rock formation, it was a potential artifact, the sole remnant of a civilization that left no buildings, no tools, and no bodies. The revelation of these features created a quiet, profound schism within the scientific community. On one side are the traditionalists, who argue that a yet undiscovered natural phenomenon must be responsible. They propose complex atmospheric electrical events, or a cascade of unknown chemical reactions, theories that grow more elaborate with each new piece of data. On the other side is a smaller, more daring group of thinkers, philosophers, physicists, and geologists, who have begun to champion a radical idea they call the Pyrrhian hypothesis. They propose that we are looking at the tombstone of Earth's first intelligence, an intelligence that was not biological. It was not life as we know it, but something other, something born of the planet's own fiery heart. This hypothesis is made all the more compelling and all the more frightening by the deafening silence of the fossil record. During the Silurian period, when the glass strata was formed, the planet was a world of profound emptiness. Life was almost entirely confined to the oceans. The land was a barren expanse of rock and primitive moss. There were no animals capable of building a fire, let alone manipulating energy on a global scale. There is no evolutionary path leading to or from this event. It simply appears, a moment of impossible complexity in an era of biological simplicity. It is as if a master composer wrote a single, brilliant symphony in the middle of a planet that had not yet learned to speak, a symphony that was heard by no one. The Pyrrhian hypothesis offers a breathtaking, if unsettling, solution to this paradox. It suggests that consciousness is not exclusively the domain of biology. What if, under a unique set of geothermal and chemical conditions, the planet itself woke up? The hypothesis posits that a vast, interconnected network of crystalline rock, energized by the planet's internal heat, could have formed a kind of geological brain. This entity, the Pyrrhians, would not have been a collection of individuals, but a single, unified planetary consciousness. It would not have perceived the world through eyes or ears, but through seismic vibrations, electromagnetic fields, and the slow, deep rhythms of the Earth itself. Its thoughts would have been geological events. For this consciousness, the planet was not a home, it was its body. Silicate rock was not a building material, it was the substrate of its thoughts. Geothermal vents were not just sources of heat, they were nodes of power, the synapses in a mind the size of a world. The Age of Fire, then, was the period of its brief, incandescent existence, a time when this planetary mind learned to manipulate energy with a precision we can scarcely imagine. The glass strata is not the ruin of a city, but something far more profound, a recording of its activity. A fossilized brainwave, a final, fading echo of a consciousness that burned with the intensity of the Earth's own core. Yet this age was fleeting, a mere few thousand years in the deep time of the planet. Why? Perhaps such an existence was inherently unstable. A fire that burns that brightly often consumes itself. Perhaps the very act of its consciousness, the manipulation of such immense energies, fundamentally altered the conditions that allowed it to exist in the first place. Or perhaps its mind simply ended. Like a dream upon waking, it may have dissolved back into the silent, unthinking geology from which it arose, leaving behind only the memory of its heat. It was a fever dream of the young Earth, a momentary spark of awareness before a long, deep sleep. And so, for 420 million years, the Earth has been a patient accomplice in erasing this impossible memory. The slow, relentless churn of tectonic plates has dragged vast sections of the glass strata down into the molten mantle, recycling them into new rock. The rise and fall of mountain ranges have ground it to dust. The scouring of glaciers and the gentle pressure of oceans have buried it beneath miles of sediment. We are left with only fragments, a global puzzle where most of the pieces are forever lost. The glass strata remains a quiet, shimmering testament to the idea that the history of intelligence on this planet may be far older, stranger, and more lonely than we ever dared to imagine. To truly understand the weight of the glass strata, we must walk in the footsteps of the scientist who first tried to decipher it. For decades, it was a geological footnote, an oddity catalogued in core samples from Greenland to Antarctica. Its unnerving consistency was its most baffling trait. How could an event, any event, leave such a uniform, delicate signature across the entire globe? The first and most obvious suspect was a cosmic impact. The history of our planet is punctuated by violent collisions from space, events that have reshaped continents and ended entire eras of life. But the glass strata bore none of the classic hallmarks. There was no spike in iridium, the telltale calling card of an asteroid. There was no chaotic jumble of shocked quartz and melted rock. Instead, there was only this single, impossibly thin, and eerily serene line of perfect glass. The next logical culprit was volcanic activity. Earth is a geologically active world, and its history is filled with super-eruptions that dwarfed anything modern humans have ever witnessed. These events can blanket the planet in ash, creating distinct layers in the rock record. Yet, the glass strata is not ash. It is vitrified rock, meaning the surface itself was melted and transformed. Furthermore, volcanic glass, known as obsidian, is chemically messy, a chaotic soup of minerals. The glass of the strata is almost pure fused silica, suggesting a process far more refined and orderly than the brute force of an eruption. The heat source required was not only immense but also clean, leaving behind a scar of surgical precision rather than a battlefield of geological chaos. Could it have been a phenomenon of the atmosphere? Some researchers propose the theory of fulgurites, the glassy tubes formed when lightning strikes sand or rock. Perhaps, they argued, the Silurian Earth experienced an atmospheric event of unimaginable scale, a planet-wide electrical storm that lasted for centuries, stitching the surface with lightning. It is a poetic and terrifying image, but it crumbles under scrutiny. Fulgurites are random, branching structures, tracing the chaotic path of electricity. The glass strata is a continuous, uniform sheet. To create it, the energy would have needed to be applied evenly across every square inch of the planet's landmass simultaneously. It was not the scattered fury of a storm, but the steady application of a universal force. With the obvious natural explanations failing to hold, scientists turned their instruments to the layer itself, peering deeper into its structure. And what they found there took the mystery from the realm of the improbable to the edge of the impossible. Within the glass, at a microscopic level, were patterns, not the fractal, branching patterns of natural crystal formation, but repeating geometric tessellations of breathtaking complexity. Hexagons locked into spirals, triangles forming vast, intricate lattices. It was as if someone had etched a blueprint onto the face of the world. Nature builds with elegant, often chaotic, rules of physics. It does not, as a rule, practice perfect Euclidean geometry on a planetary scale. What force could command such order? This discovery was so profound that for years, it was a guarded secret within the geological community, a piece of data so strange it threatened to undermine the very foundations of the science. The patterns were too deliberate, too reminiscent of design. They looked less like a natural phenomenon and more like the internal architecture of a microchip. This analogy, though unsettling, became inescapable. In our own quest for knowledge, we store information by etching patterns onto silicon wafers. Was it possible that this layer was not just a scar, but a message, a recording, a vast, planetary-scale storage device, written and then abandoned by an author we could not even begin to conceive of? The question hung in the air of every laboratory that studied the sample. Deeper still, embedded within these geometric patterns, were the carbon lattices. This was perhaps the most challenging discovery of all. Carbon is the building block of life as we know it, but in the rock record it typically appears as soot, coal, or the fossilized remains of organic matter. The carbon in the glass strata was different. It was arranged in stable, repeating molecular chains of incredible complexity, structures that could, in theory, hold vast amounts of information, much like the DNA in our own cells. It was not the residue of a fire, but the architecture of a library. The combination of geometric silica and structured carbon painted a picture of a technology so advanced it was indistinguishable from geology. The line between a natural anomaly and a potential artifact had been irrevocably crossed. This is the point in any great mystery where the map ends and true exploration begins. We are left with fragments of a story that challenge our place in the universe, whispers from a time so deep it feels like another world entirely. Findings like this remind us how little we truly know. If you're fascinated by these missing pieces of history, subscribing will keep you close to the next revelation, as we continue to piece together the echoes of this forgotten age. The clues suggest we are not just looking at a geological event, but at the faint, fossilized ghost of a mind. But what kind of mind could exist in a world devoid of brains, of bodies, of biology, as we understand it? To answer this, we must entertain a radical idea, one born from the fringes of theoretical physics and astrobiology, the concept of non-biological consciousness. Life on Earth is carbon-based, a beautiful but perhaps not unique solution to the problem of existence. Scientists have long speculated about the possibility of silicon-based life. organisms that might arise on worlds different from our own. Silicon, like carbon, can form complex molecular chains, and it is the primary component of rock. Could the planet itself, under the right conditions, have become the vessel for a different kind of life? Imagine a vast, interconnected crystalline network stretching for thousands of miles through the planet's crust, fed by the immense geothermal energy of the Earth's core and governed by the precise laws of crystal physics. Could such a network achieve a state of complexity where it woke up? This is the core of the Pyrrhian hypothesis. It proposes that intelligence is not an exclusively biological phenomenon, but an emergent property of any sufficiently complex and energy-rich system. The Pyrrhians were not creatures living on the Earth. They were, in a very real sense, the Earth itself, thinking. Their thoughts were not electrical impulses in a brain, but seismic vibrations, electromagnetic resonances, and slow, deliberate shifts in the crystalline matrix beneath the surface. This hypothesis provides a chillingly elegant solution to the greatest puzzle of all, the complete absence of fossils. Paleontologists have searched for 420 million years of rock and found no trace of the builders, no hint of a body, no evolutionary path leading to or from this moment of impossible complexity. The Pyrrhians left no bones because they had none. They built no cities because the planet was their cathedral. Their existence was written not in flesh, but in fire and stone. The glass strata is not their tombstone. It is their fossil, the only kind of fossil a being of pure geology could ever leave behind. It is the preserved remnant of their global, interconnected consciousness. For millennia, this idea remained a fringe speculation, a fascinating thought experiment with no way to be proven. The glass strata was a compelling clue, but it was silent, a static monument to a forgotten age. Proving that it was the product of a mind seemed impossible. The artifact was there, but its creators were gone, leaving no other trace of their passage. The silence that followed their disappearance was absolute, stretching across hundreds of millions of years, as biological life slowly, painstakingly conquered the land and eventually gave rise to us. The story of the Pyrrhians, it seemed, would forever be a ghost story, a whisper in the stone that could never be confirmed. Then, in the cold, crushing darkness of the Mariana Trench, everything changed. A deep-sea research mission was mapping a newly discovered system of hydrothermal vents, places where the raw, creative energy of the planet's core burst forth into the ocean. There, shielded from the slow erosion of the surface world for eons, they found something extraordinary. It was a section of the glass strata, but unlike any seen before. It was not a thin, flat layer. Instead, it was a network of crystalline filaments, miles long, woven directly into the primordial basalt of the ocean floor, glowing faintly with their own internal heat. It was a perfectly preserved piece of the ancient world. The discovery was monumental, but what happened next sent a shockwave through the entire scientific world. During their survey, the research submarine emitted a standard, low-frequency sonar pulse to map the structure. This was a routine procedure, done thousands of times a day in oceans around the world. But when the sound wave struck the crystalline filament, it did not simply reflect back. The filament absorbed the energy. For a moment, there was silence, and then the filament began to hum. It was not a simple vibration. It was a complex, resonant cascade of sound, a symphony of mathematical harmonies and tonal sequences that filled the tiny submarine with an ancient, alien music. The recording of this resonant echo, as it came to be known, was analyzed by the world's most brilliant minds in mathematics, musicology, and physics. The conclusion was unanimous and paradigm-shattering. The pattern of tones was not random, it was information. It was not a language meant to be translated, but something far more profound, the fossilized echo of a thought pattern. The sonar pulse had provided just enough energy to activate a dormant memory, causing the crystal to resonate along the pathways of its ancient structure. We were not just looking at the work of a mind. For the first time, we were listening to the faint, 420-million-year-old echo of the mind itself. This single event transformed the Pyrrhian hypothesis from speculation into testable theory. The resonant echo was the Rosetta Stone for a civilization that spoke in heat and geometry. It was the first tangible proof that an intelligent, non-biological consciousness had not only existed on Earth, but had left behind a recording of its own existence. The global scientific community, once deeply skeptical, was forced to confront a new and unsettling reality. The history of intelligence on our planet did not begin with us. We were not the first. We were merely the first to be made of flesh and bone, the first to walk on a world that had already dreamed. The discovery of the echo opened a new, exhilarating field of science: geoarchaeology. Researchers began to understand that the glass strata was not a uniform artifact, but a complex one, with different patterns and lattices in different regions, perhaps representing different thoughts or functions of the planetary mind. The filaments in the deep ocean trenches, preserved in their pristine state, became the most valuable archaeological sites on Earth. They were the libraries of this lost civilization, holding the secrets of a consciousness that perceived the universe in ways we can scarcely imagine, a mind that saw time not as a line, but as a slow, geological rhythm. This revelation forces us to reconsider the very nature of our planet's history. The Silurian period, once imagined as a silent, empty stage waiting for the drama of biological evolution to begin, was nothing of the sort. It was the final act of a completely different story, a story of a mind born of fire. The immense silence that followed was not the sound of an empty world, but the sound of a profound and total absence. It was the quiet that falls after a symphony has ended. We, the inheritors of this quiet, have spent our entire existence living in the shadow of a memory we never knew existed. The implications ripple outward, far beyond the confines of our own world. If a planetary consciousness could arise here, from the simple ingredients of rock and heat, why not elsewhere? Our search for extraterrestrial intelligence has always been a search for beings like us, for radio signals and biological signatures. But perhaps we have been looking for the wrong thing. Perhaps the universe is teeming with minds that are not biological, intelligences that are slow, patient, and geological in scale, worlds that do not have life, but are themselves alive. The resonant echo from the deep is a clue that we must learn to listen for the whispers in the stone, not just the shouts between the stars. The scientific journey into the age of fire is just beginning. Every new core sample, every deep-sea dive, now carries the potential for another revelation. Scientists are developing new technologies designed to gently energize the glass strata, hoping to awaken other echoes, to piece together more fragments of this immense planetary consciousness. They are no longer just geologists. They are explorers of an inner space, charting the forgotten history of a mind that was our entire world. They are learning to read a language written in the planet's own memory. What we have uncovered is not just a lost civilization, but a fundamental truth about existence. Intelligence can wear many masks. The Purian mind was as different from ours as a star is from a cell, yet it was a form of consciousness. It contemplated the universe, it manipulated energy, it recorded its existence. It was a brief, brilliant flame in the deep darkness of time, and its story, now being slowly unearthed, challenges us to look at the ground beneath our feet not as dead rock, but as a potential vessel for a mind far older and perhaps far vaster than our own. The discovery of the resonant echo did not provide answers so much as it created a single, profound question that now sits at the heart of all human science and philosophy. We have found the ghost in the machine of our own planet. We have heard its faint, fading song. Now we must ask, what is it trying to tell us? What lessons are encoded in this 420 million-year-old memory? The answer may not only redefine our past, but also provide a chilling and beautiful glimpse into the possible future, an ultimate fate of all intelligence in the cosmos. To truly grasp the nature of the Purians, we must first accept the limitations of our own minds. Our consciousness is a product of biology, a frantic, beautiful symphony of electricity and chemistry, played out over the timescale of a human life. We think in seconds, we live in decades. To understand a mind that thought in millennia, a consciousness whose body was a planet, we need more than data. We need metaphors. We need to look for its faint, distorted echoes in the strange corners of our own history, in the anomalies that defy simple explanation. The resonant echo from the deep did not give us a dictionary. It gave us a keyhole, and now we must learn how to see through it by finding parallels in the world we thought we knew. Imagine the Earth 420 million years ago, not as a ball of rock, but as a colossal, sleeping brain. The vast, interconnected networks of crystalline rock in its crust were its neurons. The geothermal vents, pulsing with heat from the core, were its synapses, firing with unimaginable power. A thought, for the Purian consciousness, was not a fleeting electrical impulse. It was a slow, deliberate seismic wave, a ripple of energy that might take 1,000 years to cross a continent. Its emotions were not joy or sadness, but the deep, resonant frequencies of tectonic plates grinding against one another, the subtle shifts in the planet's magnetic field. It was a mind of immense patience and incomprehensible scale. Our own brains operate on a constant stream of sensory input: light, sound, touch. The Parian mind sensed the world differently. Its senses were tuned to the planet's own internal state. It could feel the stress building in a fault line thousands of miles away, the way a human feels a muscle begin to cramp. It could perceive the slow dance of the mantle beneath its crust, the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of the planet's molten core. Its awareness was not directed outward to the stars, but inward, a profound state of planetary self-reflection. The Age of Fire was the brief period when this geological brain was fully awake, processing the universe through the language of physics, chemistry, and time. This planetary consciousness would not have built things in the way we do. It would not have needed tools or cities. Why would a mind that is everywhere need to build a shelter in one place? Its engineering was the manipulation of energy itself. The glass strata is the ultimate expression of this. It is not a structure. It is an action, frozen in time. It is the fossilized remnant of a planetary-scale thought process, a moment when the Parian mind focused its full attention and reshaped the very surface of its own body. It is the geological equivalent of a great work of art, or a profound mathematical equation written in a language of melted stone. To understand its legacy, we can think of the Earth as a vast, ancient library. The Parians wrote a single, magnificent book, a chronicle of their existence written in fire and geometry. But over the eons, the library has fallen into ruin. Tectonic shifts have acted as a slow fire, consuming entire chapters, dragging them into the mantle to be melted back into illegible magma. Erosion has been the patient, relentless silverfish, nibbling away at the pages, turning intricate patterns into dust. Glaciers have been the careless hands that tore out entire sections, scattering them across the continents. We are left with only fragments, a few scorched pages, and the echo of the title. This idea of a lost, impossibly advanced chapter in history is not entirely alien to us. We see faint, confusing glimmers of it in our own past. Archaeologists sometimes unearth what they call out-of-place artifacts, or oparts. The Antikythera mechanism, for instance, is a hand-powered astronomical calculator of shocking complexity, discovered in a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. Its intricate system of gears and dials seems to belong to a much later century. It is a whisper of a forgotten level of knowledge, a technological sentence without a paragraph to give it context. It challenges our linear view of history, suggesting that knowledge can be found and then, just as easily, lost. The glass strata is the ultimate out-of-place artifact. It doesn't just challenge the history of a single civilization. It challenges the history of life itself. It suggests that a form of technological and intellectual sophistication we have yet to achieve existed on this planet before the first fish ever crawled onto land. Like the Antikythera mechanism, it forces us to question the story we tell ourselves about a simple, linear progression from primitive to advanced. It hints that the arc of intelligence is not a straight line, but perhaps a cycle of brilliant flashes followed by long, deep periods of darkness and forgetting. These human anomalies, these whispers of lost knowledge, are like faint, distorted echoes of the great silence left by the Parians. They are a reminder that history is not a perfectly preserved record, but a collection of surviving fragments. The existence of the Parians suggests that the greatest fragment of all, the story of Earth's first mind, was almost entirely lost to the slow, geological digestion of time. Every time we find an artifact that doesn't fit, we are reminded that the book of the past is full of missing pages, and that the most important chapters may be the ones we can never read. Consider the great puzzle of human evolution, the Great Leap Forward. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors existed with relatively simple tools and social structures. Then, around 50,000 years ago, something changed. In a geological blink, we see the sudden, explosive appearance of complex language, sophisticated art, religious symbolism, and technological innovation. It is as if a switch was flipped in the human mind. Anthropologists have long debated the cause, but the sheer speed of this cognitive revolution remains a profound mystery. It was less an evolution and more of a sudden planet-wide awakening. What if this leap was not entirely our own? What if, as the human brain reached a certain level of complexity, it became a sensitive enough instrument to perceive something that had been waiting in the background all along? Perhaps our ancestors, in their deepening consciousness, accidentally tuned into a dormant frequency, a faint, residual echo of the Parian mind, still resonating in the crystalline structures of the rock beneath their feet. A whisper of geometry, of order, of the power to manipulate the physical world. Perhaps our sudden inspiration was, in fact, a 420 million year old memory. This would not have been a conscious reception, not a voice speaking in our minds. It would have been more subtle, like the way the unseen moon pulls upon the tides. A resonant influence. The geometric patterns in our earliest art, the mathematical precision of our first great structures, the very human drive to impose order on a chaotic world. Could these be the behavioral echoes of a mind that was itself pure order? We may think of our intelligence as a fortress we built ourselves, but perhaps the foundation stones were gifted to us by the ghost of a world that dreamed before we were born. We can also think of the Pyrrhians as the Earth's first dream. In the deep, silent sleep of the Silurian, the planet had a vivid, feverish dream of itself. It dreamed it was awake. It dreamed it could think. This dream was the age of fire, an incandescent period of self-awareness, and like all dreams, it was fleeting. When it ended, the planet slipped back into a different state of being, the slow, unconscious, methodical reality of biological evolution. We, and all the life that has ever walked this earth, are the products of the planet's waking life. We are the slow, patient, and tangible thoughts of a world that has forgotten its own dream. But does a powerful dream ever truly vanish upon waking? It can leave behind a mood, a feeling, a fragmented image that haunts the waking mind for hours. Perhaps the memory of the Pyrrhians has done the same for the Earth. Perhaps our own civilization's relentless drive to create interconnected networks. Our cities like sprawling neural nets. Our internet, a global web of silicon and light, is a faint biological reenactment of that first geological consciousness. We may be unconsciously trying to rebuild the planetary mind that our world has long since forgotten, driven by an instinct we can't explain. This idea resonates in the strange human fascination with sacred geometry. Across cultures and millennia, humanity has been obsessed with perfect shapes and mathematical patterns, the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, the precise angles of the Great Pyramids, the intricate mandalas of the East. We intuitively feel that these patterns hold a deeper meaning, that they are a language through which the universe speaks. We build our most sacred spaces using this language of pure form, as if trying to create a place that resonates with a fundamental harmony we can feel but cannot name. Where does this intuition come from? Why does a perfect hexagon or a flawless spiral feel so profound to the human mind? The Pyrrhian hypothesis offers a haunting possibility. We are drawn to these patterns because they are the native language of our planet's first intelligence. The microgeometric structures within the glass strata are not just patterns. They are the fossilized thoughts of the Pyrrhians. When we create sacred geometry, we are, without knowing it, speaking the language of the dead. We are tracing the faint outlines of a thought that was frozen in stone 420 million years ago. This connection may run even deeper. Many of the world's most ancient and sacred sites are built upon specific geological locations, places with unusual magnetic fields, natural springs, or unique crystalline rock formations. These are often called places of power. Perhaps our ancestors were not just superstitious. Perhaps they were geologically sensitive. They may have been able to feel, in a way we no longer can, the faint residual hum of the glass strata beneath them. They built their temples and stone circles on these spots not just to be closer to their gods, but to be closer to the dreaming memory of the Earth itself. Another way to frame this is through a modern metaphor, the planet's operating system. The Pyrrhian consciousness was Earth's original OS. It was elegant, powerful, and written in the fundamental code of physics. It ran the entire planet as a single, integrated system. But for reasons we may never know, this system crashed, and it did not just shut down. It was wiped clean, leaving behind only that one unreadable file, the glass strata. The system was so completely erased that the planet had to start over from scratch. Biology, then, is the new operating system. It was not elegantly designed from the top down. It was built from the bottom up, through billions of years of trial and error. It is messy, redundant, and often inefficient, but it is also incredibly resilient. Life, this new biological OS, has slowly taken over the planet's hardware, writing its own code into every corner of the world. We, with our technology and our global civilization, are the latest version of this software, the most complex application it has yet produced. Yet, deep within the planet's hardware, the fundamental rock and heat of the Earth, fragments of that original alien operating system, may still exist. The resonant echo is the first proof of this. It is like finding a single, uncorrupted sector on a hard drive that has been erased for eons. We cannot run the program, but for the first time we can see a piece of the original code. It tells us that the world we inhabit was once run by a completely different logic, a logic of fire and stone that we are only just beginning to comprehend. These anomalies and metaphors do not solve the mystery of the Pyrrhians. They deepen it. They transform it from a simple geological puzzle into a profound philosophical question about the nature of memory, influence, and consciousness itself. They suggest that we are not living on a blank slate, but on a haunted planet, a world that carries the ghost of its first forgotten mind within its very bones. The silence we once took for emptiness may, in fact, be the sound of a profound and ancient absence. They allow us to feel the true scale of what was lost, an entire mode of existence, a form of intelligence as far beyond us as we are beyond the moss on a stone, flickered into being and then vanished without a witness. It left no stories, no descendants, only a scar and an echo. By looking for its faint reflection in our own world, in our art, our history, and our instincts, we are not just solving a mystery. We are, in a way, mourning a predecessor we never knew we had. Ultimately, these comparisons serve as a bridge across an unimaginable gulf of time and being. The planetary brain, the ruined library, the forgotten dream, the ghost in the machine. They are our attempts to give a name to the inexplicable, to build a human context for a non-human event. They allow us to stand at the edge of this immense, 420-million-year-old silence and listen. And in that listening, we begin to understand that the story of our world is far stranger, more beautiful, and more lonely than we ever dared to imagine. The resonant echo from the deep confirmed a mind, but it told us nothing of its fate. We have the first and last pages of a magnificent story, but the entire middle is missing. Why did the Age of Fire end? This is perhaps the most profound question left in the wake of the Pyrrhians: existence. If such a powerful planetary consciousness could arise, why was its reign so fleeting, a mere spark in the immense darkness of geological time? The silence it left behind is not just an absence of sound, but an absence of answers. To find them, we must step beyond the certainties of the rock record and into the realm of reasoned speculation, exploring the shadows of what might have been. The simplest and perhaps most tragic hypothesis is that the Pyrrhians were the architects of their own demise. A fire that burns with the intensity of a star cannot burn for long. Their consciousness was fueled by the raw geothermal energy of the young Earth, a power source of unimaginable scale. In learning to manipulate this energy, to focus it with surgical precision to create the glass strata, they may have inadvertently begun a process of planetary exhaustion. Their thoughts were geological events, their awareness a constant drain on the very systems that sustained them. They were, in essence, a mind that was consuming its own body, a brilliant fever that the planet could not sustain. Imagine their final millennia not as a time of decline, but of incandescent, accelerating brilliance. As they drew more and more power from the Earth's core, their consciousness may have expanded, their thoughts growing ever more complex and far-reaching. The creation of the glass strata might have been their ultimate masterpiece, a final, beautiful act of self-expression that required a fatal expenditure of energy. It was a planetary swan song, written in fire. Once the act was complete, the delicate balance was broken. The geothermal vents that were their synapses cooled. The crystalline networks that were their neurons fell silent. The fire went out, leaving a cooling world and a profound, lasting quiet. This theory of self-consumption carries a haunting, poetic resonance. It suggests a natural limit to the intensity of any consciousness. Perhaps any intelligence, whether geological or biological, that achieves a certain level of power becomes inherently unstable. It is a cosmic law of diminishing returns. The brighter the flame, the faster it consumes the fuel, and the deeper the darkness that follows. The Pyrrhians may not have been defeated by an external force or a cosmic accident, but by the fundamental thermodynamics of their own existence. Their story becomes a cautionary tale, a quiet warning echoing from the deep past about the price of ultimate power. But what if their disappearance was not an end, but a transformation? A different hypothesis suggests a more deliberate and perhaps even more profound conclusion to the Age of Fire. The Pyrrhian consciousness, being the planet itself, would have had a unique perspective on existence. It would have perceived the slow, patient stirrings of a new kind of complexity in the shallow oceans, the tenacious, messy, and wonderfully adaptable chemistry of biological life. It would have sensed the potential in these carbon-based organisms, a different path to awareness, one based not on heat and order, but on replication and evolution. In this scenario, the end of the Purians was not a death, but a choice. Perhaps this vast, geological mind understood that its own existence was a developmental stage for the planet, a necessary but temporary phase. It may have realized that for biology to flourish, for the Earth to explore a new and different kind of consciousness, the age of fire had to end. The immense energies it commanded were perhaps hostile to the delicate structures of early life. Its reign, a world of controlled heat and crystalline perfection, had to give way to a cooler, more chaotic world where cells could thrive. The creation of the glass strata, then, takes on a new meaning. It was not a final masterpiece or a tombstone, but a legacy. It was a final, deliberate act of planetary engineering, a way of subtly altering the planet's surface chemistry or magnetic field to create a more hospitable environment for the biological age to come. It was a message of inheritance, a foundation stone laid for a future it would never see. The Purians did not burn out. They passed the torch. They dissolved back into the silent rock, becoming the quiet, stable bedrock upon which all future life, including our own, would be built. This idea transforms the Purians from a tragic, forgotten failure into the planet's silent, benevolent ancestors. It suggests that the history of consciousness on Earth is not a series of disconnected accidents, but a single, continuous story with different authors in different eras. We are not just living on the same planet. We are living in a world that was intentionally prepared for us by a mind that existed on a scale we can barely comprehend. Our own intelligence, born of flesh and blood, becomes the second verse of a planetary song, whose first verse was sung in a language of fire and stone. There is, however, a third, more unsettling possibility, one that pulls the story from the planetary to the cosmic. What if the Purians were not alone? Our search for extraterrestrial intelligence has always looked to the stars, but perhaps the first contact on this planet happened 420 million years ago. The glass strata, with its perfect geometry and embedded data, might not be a soliloquy. It could be the record of a conversation, or worse, a conflict. What if another, older intelligence, perhaps one that travels the void between worlds, detected the nascent, growing mind of the young Earth? Imagine a cosmic entity, perhaps non-biological itself, seeing the Purian consciousness as a rival, a potential threat, or simply a resource. The Age of Fire could have been a brief, desperate war, fought not with ships and weapons, but with the fundamental forces of physics. The glass strata would be the scar tissue from this silent, planetary battle. Diffused and vitrified evidence of energies being wielded on a scale that could sterilize a world. The Purians did not burn out or step aside. They were extinguished. Their sudden disappearance was the result of a cosmic struggle we never knew happened. This hypothesis casts the vast, empty silence of the universe in a much more sinister light. It suggests that the cosmos may not be empty, but cleared. Perhaps intelligence is a common phenomenon, but it is quickly identified and eliminated by older, more established powers. The Great Filter, a theoretical barrier that prevents civilizations from becoming interstellar, might not be a technological hurdle or a tendency for self-destruction. It might be an external predator. The Purians were simply the first on this world to attract its attention, and their fate was a swift and silent erasure from existence. Or perhaps the contact was not hostile, but simply overwhelming. An ancient, benevolent traveler might have tried to share its knowledge, to uplift the young Purian mind. It could have transmitted a library of cosmic information, a blueprint of the universe. But the Purian consciousness, for all its power, was still in its infancy. The sheer volume and complexity of the information could have been too much for its geological mind to process. The energy required to integrate such knowledge could have caused a fatal overload, a planetary brain seizing and burning out. The glass strata would then be the fossilized record of that downloaded information, a gift of knowledge that proved to be a fatal one. What seems like an anomaly today may be the key to rewriting the story of civilization. If you'd like to stay with us as we search for those keys, subscribe to the channel. This possibility reframes the Purian story as a cosmic tragedy of miscalculation, a well-intentioned act of mentorship that ended in the accidental death of a young and promising consciousness. It implies that the universe is filled with wonders, but also with dangers that come not from malice, but from a simple incompatibility of scale and understanding. We are left with the ghost of a mind that died from learning too much, too soon. A final and perhaps the most mind-bending hypothesis is that the Age of Fire was not a unique event, but part of a cycle. What if the Earth itself goes through phases of consciousness, like a planet breathing in and out over eons? The Pyrrhian mind was simply one iteration, a geological consciousness. Perhaps before them there was an age of atmospheric consciousness, a mind of pure energy in the planet's storms. And perhaps our own era, the age of biological intelligence, is just the current phase in this grand recurring pattern. In this cyclical model, consciousness is a fundamental property of the planet, an emergent state that it achieves whenever conditions are right. Each age has its own substrate, rock, then water and carbon, and perhaps in the future, silicon and light in our technological networks. Each age burns brightly for a time, leaving its own unique stratum, its own thin scar on the planet, before conditions change and it gives way to the next. The Pyrrhians were not the first mind. They were simply the first one we have found evidence of. This idea dismantles our linear perception of time and progress. We are not the pinnacle of evolution, the ultimate goal of the planet's long history. We are simply the current custodians of its awareness. Our civilization, with its global network of communication and information, could be seen as the biological attempt to recreate the unified planetary consciousness that the Pyrrhians achieved through geology. We are, in a sense, echoing their work without even knowing it, driven by a planetary impulse we mistake for our own ambition. And if this is a cycle, it implies that our age too will end. One day, our sprawling, noisy civilization will fall silent. The conditions that support biological life will inevitably change. We, too, will leave behind a thin layer on the rock for some future intelligence to discover. A stratum of plastic, of radioactive isotopes, of fossilized cities. Our story will become another enigmatic scar, another chapter in the planet's immense and cyclical biography of mind. The silence that followed the Pyrrhians was not an end, but merely a pause, a quiet interlude before the next verse of the song began. These speculative paths all diverge from a single point of evidence, a thin layer of glass. They remind us that a single fact can be the seed of 1,000 different stories. The Pyrrhians could have been victims of their own success, benevolent ancestors, casualties of a cosmic war, or simply one link in an endless chain. The truth may be a combination of these ideas, or something far stranger than we can yet conceive. The glass strata does not give us an answer. It gives us a mirror. In it we see our own hopes, our own fears, and our own profound uncertainty about our place in the cosmos. This exploration forces us to hold multiple, contradictory ideas in our minds at once. It is an exercise in intellectual humility. The story of the Pyrrhians is a testament to the vastness of the unknown. It reminds us that our understanding of history, of life, and of intelligence is built upon a tiny sliver of observable time. Below that sliver lies 420 million years of silence, a quiet that may be hiding a multitude of incredible stories. We have found the evidence of one, but how many others remain completely erased, lost to the slow, patient churn of the planet? The hypothesis of an external conflict, for instance, has chilling implications for our own time. As our civilization begins to send its own signals out into the cosmos, we are announcing our presence to whatever might be listening. We have always assumed a silent universe is an empty one, but the Pyrrhian story offers a different possibility. A silent universe may be a prudent one. It may be that the wisest civilizations are the quietest ones, those who have learned that to burn too brightly is to attract a dangerous and unwelcome form of attention. Our search for contact could be a cosmic invitation to a fate we cannot imagine. Conversely, the idea of the Pyrrhians as benevolent gardeners of the planet offers a sense of profound connection and purpose. It suggests that our existence is not a random accident in an indifferent universe, but a meaningful continuation of a much older legacy. It places a weight of responsibility upon us. If we are the inheritors of a world that was prepared for us, we have a duty to be worthy of that inheritance, to be thoughtful custodians of the planetary consciousness that we now carry. Our intelligence is not just our own. It is the Earth's, expressing itself in a new and fragile biological form. The cyclical theory, meanwhile, offers a strange kind of comfort. It suggests that consciousness is not a fragile, one-time fluke, but a resilient and recurring property of our world. Even if our own civilization fails, even if we vanish and leave nothing but a chemical trace, the cycle will continue. The planet will eventually find a new way to wake up. This perspective decenters humanity in a profound way, recasting us not as the main characters of the story, but as transient participants in a much grander, longer, and endlessly repeating play. Each of these hypotheses is a thought experiment, a way of testing the boundaries of what we think is possible. They are not answers, but tools for thinking. They allow us to look at the same piece of evidence, the glass strata, and see it in radically different ways. It can be a tombstone, a foundation stone, a battle scar, or a milestone. The interpretation we choose says as much about us and our view of the universe as it does about the Pyrrhians themselves. They are the ultimate Rorschach test, a pattern in the stone that reflects our own deepest questions. Ultimately, we are left with the echo. The faint, humming resonance from the bottom of the ocean is the only direct communication we have across this immense gulf of time. It is a piece of pure data, a fragment of a mind, untainted by interpretation. As we continue to study it, to decode its mathematical harmonies, we may find clues that favor one hypothesis over another. Or, more likely, we will find that it only deepens the mystery, revealing layers of complexity that lead to even more profound and unsettling questions about the nature of the mind that created it. The end of the Age of Fire remains the central, unresolved chord in this planetary symphony. Whether it was a fade-out, a sudden crash, or a deliberate handing of the baton, its conclusion created the world we know. The silence that followed was the necessary condition for our own emergence. We are the children of that silence. And now, as we listen to the faint, 420-million-year-old echo of the fire that came before, we are finally beginning to understand the true, immense, and mysterious depth of the quiet home we inhabit. The discovery of the Pyrrhians does not merely add a new chapter to our planet's history. It fundamentally breaks the binding of the book we thought we were writing. Our sense of self, as a species, has always been anchored in the belief that we are the Earth's first and only conversation with the universe. Now we find ourselves standing in a room where a profound discussion took place long before we arrived, the echoes of it still vibrating in the very walls. The foundation of human uniqueness has cracked, and through that crack we glimpse an abyss of time so deep and a form of intelligence so alien that we are forced to question not just our history, but our very nature. We are no longer the sole proprietors of this world's mind, but tenants in a house with a history far grander and more mysterious than we ever imagined. This realization forces us to reevaluate our place in the grand narrative of existence. For millennia, we have cast ourselves as the protagonists of Earth's story, the inevitable outcome of 4 billion years of evolution. The Pyrrhians demote us. We are not the first draft of consciousness, but perhaps a fragile second edition, written in a different, more volatile language. Their story suggests that intelligence is not a ladder we are climbing, but a torch that is passed, or perhaps fumbled through the eons. We are the inheritors of a profound silence, a quiet that was created by the extinguishing of a fire we can barely comprehend. Our own brief, noisy history now feels less like a triumphant march, and more like a whispered conversation in a vast, ancient, and temporarily empty cathedral. This changes how we must view our own creations. Is our relentless drive to connect the world, to weave a global web of information and light with our satellites and fiber optics, truly an invention born of human ingenuity? Or is it a deeper planetary instinct, an unconscious attempt to rebuild something that was lost? Perhaps the Earth itself remembers its former unity, and we, its current biological expression, are being guided by a faint residual memory in the rock. Our internet, our artificial intelligence networks, our sprawling smart cities, they may not be signs of our dominance over nature, but our unwitting reenactment of a geological consciousness, a biological echo of a mind that once thought in continents and spoke in fire. We may be trying to wake a ghost we don't even know is there. If we consider the hypothesis that the Pyrrhians consumed themselves, their story becomes a chilling allegory for our own time. Their age of fire was fueled by geothermal energy. Ours is fueled by the burning of fossilized sunlight and the splitting of atoms. We too are manipulating immense energies, and our civilization burns with an ever-increasing intensity. Are we following the same trajectory? Is our own technological brilliance a fire that is consuming the very planet that sustains it? The glass strata could be seen as a 420-million-year-old warning sign, a planetary scar that says, all fires, no matter how brilliant, eventually run out of fuel. The silence that followed their age could be a preview of the silence that might follow our own if we fail to learn from their ghostly example. Conversely, if we imagine the Pyrrhians as benevolent ancestors who chose to recede, our relationship with the Earth is transformed from one of conquest to one of sacred stewardship. This idea suggests our world was not an accident, but a prepared garden. The end of the Age of Fire was a deliberate act of tilling the soil for a new kind of life to grow. In this light, every species, Every ecosystem becomes part of a legacy we are tasked to protect. Our intelligence is not a random evolutionary fluke but a gift, a continuation of a planetary consciousness that sacrificed itself for our existence. This reframes our environmental crises not just as pragmatic problems of resource management, but as a profound betrayal of an ancient, unspoken trust, a desecration of a gift from a mind we can never thank. The darkest implication, however, stems from the possibility of a cosmic conflict. If the Pleiadians were extinguished by an external force, then the great silence of the universe is not a sign of emptiness, but of danger. It suggests that the cosmos is a dark forest, and to light a fire, to achieve a certain level of technological or conscious visibility, is to attract predators. Our own deliberate broadcasts into space, our cheerful messages sent to the stars, become acts of incredible naivete. Perhaps the wisest civilizations are the quietest ones, those who have learned that survival depends on not being seen. The Pleiadians' fate would then be the ultimate cautionary tale, a silent, glassy warning that some cosmic doors are best left unopened, and some questions are best left unasked to the vast, silent dark. This leads us to reconsider the very nature of progress. The cyclical hypothesis, which posits that consciousness is a recurring planetary phase, dismantles our linear view of history. We are not the pinnacle of creation, but merely the current season of the Earth's awareness. The Age of Fire was a long geological summer. Our Anthropocene is another, perhaps shorter and more chaotic one. This perspective is both humbling and strangely comforting. It suggests that even if our civilization falls, the planet's potential for consciousness will remain. We are transient custodians of the Earth's mind, and like the seasons, our time will pass, giving way to a new form of awareness we cannot yet imagine. We are not the end of the story, but a single, fleeting chapter in an epic that repeats. The existence of the Pleiadians radically expands our definition of life and intelligence. For centuries, our search for life beyond Earth has been a search for ourselves, for water, for carbon, for biology. The Pleiadians prove that consciousness can wear a mask of stone, that a mind can be born from heat and crystal. How many other forms of being have we overlooked? Could a gas giant's swirling storms contain a vast, atmospheric intelligence? Could the plasma flares of a star be a form of thought? The Pleiadians teach us that we must learn to look for patterns, for order, and for complexity in places we once dismissed as dead geology. The universe may not be filled with creatures, but with consciousness in forms too slow, too vast, or too alien for our biological senses to easily perceive. The resonant echo becomes a new kind of sacred text for humanity, a message from a forgotten Genesis. It contains no words, no commandments, only pure, mathematical harmony. It is a truth that requires no faith, only the ability to listen. How will our species handle such a revelation? It could become a unifying force, a shared piece of our deepest heritage that transcends culture and religion, reminding us that we are all children of a world that dreamed before us. Or, it could become a new source of conflict, as nations and ideologies fight to control it, to interpret it, to claim its legacy as their own. The faint hum from the deep ocean is a test, a mirror reflecting our own capacity for wisdom or folly. In the unified consciousness of the Pleiadians, we see a reflection of our own fragmentation. They were a single mind, a planetary I. We are 8 billion individual points of awareness, a chaotic, beautiful, and often lonely chorus of we. Their story highlights the profound solitude that is central to the human condition. We strive for connection through art, language, and love, trying to bridge the gaps between our isolated minds. The Pleiadians had no such gaps. They existed in a state of perfect communion that we can only dream of. Their silent, unified fossil serves as a monument to a kind of existence that is the antithesis of our own, a reminder that our individuality is both our greatest strength and our deepest sorrow. This discovery forces a complete overhaul of our search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We have been scanning the heavens for radio signals, listening for the chatter of civilizations like our own. But if a mind as powerful as the Pleiadians can exist and vanish without ever building a radio telescope, then our methods are profoundly limited. We have been searching for whispers in a storm, when we should have been learning to listen for the slow, deep breathing of the planets themselves. The new frontier of astrobiology may not be in the radio spectrum, but in the subtle geological and atmospheric signatures of worlds that might not have life, but might themselves be alive. The silence we've been hearing from the stars might not be an absence of voices, but our own inability to hear a different kind of song. The sheer scale of Pyrrhian history offers a new perspective on our own perception of time. Our lives are governed by seconds, hours, and years. Our civilization panics about quarterly reports and election cycles. The Pyrrhians thought in epochs. Their brief existence of a few thousand years, which seems an eternity to us, was a fleeting spark in the life of the planet. Their story invites us to step outside our frantic human timescale and adopt a geological sense of patience. From this vantage point, our greatest crises and our most urgent dramas become small, transient ripples on an immense and ancient ocean. It is a humbling perspective, one that can offer a strange and profound sense of peace in our hurried, anxious world. Ultimately, the glass strata acts as a planetary Rorschach test. The patterns we see within it, and the stories we build to explain them, are reflections of our own deepest hopes and fears for the future. If we see a cautionary tale of self-destruction, it is because we fear our own capacity to burn too brightly. If we see a story of benevolent sacrifice, it is because we hope for a deeper meaning and purpose to our existence. If we see a cosmic horror story, it is because we are terrified of our own smallness in a vast and indifferent universe. The Pyrrhians are gone. They cannot tell us their story. We are left to tell it for them, and in doing so, we inevitably tell the story of ourselves. We now inhabit a world that is fundamentally haunted. The ground beneath our feet is no longer just inert rock and soil. It is a crypt, an archive, a memorial to a mind that predates all of our gods and all of our philosophies. Every mountain range that has risen and fallen, every tectonic plate that has ground its way across the globe, has participated in the slow, patient act of forgetting this first impossible dream. This knowledge imbues our world with a new layer of melancholy and wonder. We are walking on the ghost of a forgotten intelligence, and the wind that blows across the empty plains carries a silence that is no longer empty, but filled with the weight of an immense and unknowable loss. In the end, we are left where we began, listening. The faint mathematical hum from the deepest part of the ocean is the only voice that remains. It is not an answer, but a single, sustained, 420-million-year-old question. It does not tell us who we are or what we should do, but it provides the ultimate context for our existence. We are a fleeting verse in a planetary epic whose first and perhaps greatest chapter was written in a language of fire and then almost completely erased. Our destiny is not to solve the mystery of the Pyrrhians, but to live with its profound and beautiful weight, to understand that we are the children of a great silence, and to be humbled by the echo of the song that came before. And so, we are left here, in the quiet of our own modern world, listening to a faint, 420-million-year-old hum that rises from the crushing darkness of the deepest sea. We began our journey by asking what secrets the ancient stone might keep, and the answer is more profound than we could have ever imagined. It is not a story of empires or kings, but the memory of a mind that was, for a fleeting moment, the planet itself. The foundations of our uniqueness have been washed away, revealing a history far deeper and stranger than our own. We are no longer the first lonely voice to call this world home. We are the inheritors of a profound silence, the children of a quiet that followed a fire we never knew existed, living in a house that has been haunted by a magnificent ghost for nearly 500 million years. The resonant echo is not a dictionary that will translate the Pyrrhian mind for us. It is a piece of music whose instrument was a world and whose composer is long gone. It offers no answers, no solutions, no clear path forward. Instead, it holds up a mirror to our own limitations. We can detect its mathematical beauty, we can analyze its harmonic structure, but we cannot truly comprehend the thought it represents, any more than a single cell in our body can comprehend the totality of our own consciousness. We are in the presence of a sacred, fossilized memory, and its ultimate meaning may be forever beyond our grasp. Its purpose, then, is not to be understood, but to be felt, a constant, humbling reminder of the sheer scale of what was lost, and the beautiful, terrible fragility of any mind, anywhere in the universe. This revelation forces us to turn the mirror back upon ourselves, to look at our own sprawling global civilization with new eyes. Is our own age, with its humming cities of glass and steel, its web of light encircling the globe, simply a new kind of fire? A frantic biological reenactment of that first geological consciousness? We, too, are manipulating immense energies, and we, too, are leaving a permanent scar upon the planet's surface. Are we destined to follow the same path, to burn so brightly that we consume ourselves, leaving behind nothing but a thin layer of plastic and regret for a future world to puzzle over? The Pyrrhian story is no longer just a history of the past. It has become a chilling and urgent question about our own future, a question whispered from the deep rock. And what of the great silent cosmos around us? We have spent a century listening for the chatter of other civilizations, and have been met with a profound and unnerving quiet. We always assumed this great silence meant we were alone. But the fate of the Pyrrhians offers another, more sobering possibility. What if the universe is not empty, but quiet? What if intelligence is a common spark, a fire that ignites on countless worlds, only to burn out or be extinguished before it can ever reach its neighbors? Perhaps the silence between the stars is not a sign of absence, but a graveyard of forgotten fires. Perhaps the wisest civilizations are not the loudest, but the ones who have learned to tend their flame with a quiet, sustainable patience, understanding the immense and indifferent darkness that waits to reclaim all things. We are left standing on the shore of an ocean of time we never knew existed, its depths holding the echoes of a world that dreamed before us. The silence of the earth is no longer empty. It is filled with the weight of that forgotten dream. When you next feel the solid ground beneath your feet, remember that you are walking on a monument, a tomb, a library, whose single remaining page we are only just beginning to read. What other, even older dreams has our planet forgotten? What other songs have faded into the deep quiet? And as we continue to build our own fire, reaching ever higher, we must ask ourselves the question that now echoes from the heart of our world. Will our age end in a new silence, or will we finally learn to listen to the one that has been waiting for us all along?